Our friend Ryan Girdusky joins us. He is the author of the National's Populist newsletter on Substack, also founder of the 1776 Project PAC. Ryan, good to have you as always.
Thanks for having me.
Let's take a look first at the numbers as you see them today, the day after the debate. What are the debate numbers and what are the poll numbers looking like, as much as we can dive into that data?
So in the debate numbers, we'll start with that. The CNN Insta poll results had Kamala winning the debate with 63% and Trump having 37%. 37% of viewers said Trump won, 63% said Kamala won. This is fairly in line with almost every single debate Trump has ever had. CNN Insta polls, which are not science because it's right afterwards, only among viewers. Trump got 27% versus Hillary's 62% in 2016. And in 2020, in the first debate with Biden, he got 28% to Biden's 60%. Trump is not a very good debater, never really has been, with the sole exception of the last debate with Joe Biden. Trump has never won a single debate in a CNN Insta poll. Going into how he's performing election-wise, according to all the major poll aggregate websites, in the national polls, Trump is either behind from 1 point to 3 points, and that's according to poll aggregates including Nate Silver, including 538, The Economist, Race to the White House, Voter Hub, JHK forecast. They all have Kamala with a lead, but it's a slight lead. It's a lead between 1 and 3 points, as I said. If there is a error in Kamala's favor, the same way there was a polling error in Joe Biden's favor in 2020 and in Hillary's favor in 2016, although Hillary's was in the margin of error, that would put Kamala at about a point ahead of Trump nationally, which is what you're looking at. The last three major polls that came out, all within the span of last 72 hours, or last week rather. The New York Times Siena poll, which had Trump up 1 point, the Marquette poll, which had Harris up by 1 point. That was the Marist poll that had Kamala up 1 point. And then the Pew Research poll, which had a dead tie, are all telling about the same story, which is a close national race.
Ryan, isn't this race just going to come down to who wins Pennsylvania? If you had to say, I want to know one state, and I told you the exact results for Pennsylvania, couldn't you tell almost entirely based on how Pennsylvania votes what's going to happen in the national race?
So I wrote this in the National Populist Substack, my National Populist newsletter on Substack. There are three states that will decide this election: Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Those are the three. If it guarantee whatever happens in those three states, there is no way for the winner of those three states to lose nationally. So yeah, Pennsylvania is one of the three, and it is the largest electoral getter of the three, most amount of electoral college votes of the three. But those are the three that decide. They're all on the East Coast.
Sorry to cut you off, but Trump would be in the lead in Georgia and North Carolina based on general consensus, gambling markets, all those things. And Pennsylvania basically is a straight toss-up.
In most of the ones that factor in things like polling errors, North Carolina and Georgia are within Trump, or have Trump at a very small lead, and have Harris has a very small lead in Pennsylvania. They average out that North Carolina and Georgia have about a lead of about a half a point for Trump, and a lead for Harris by 1 point in Pennsylvania. But I will sit there and say North Carolina and Pennsylvania, pollsters usually oversample Democrats in these polls. Georgia, they usually oversample Republicans. Georgia, like many other states, including Texas, Virginia, Wisconsin, do not register voters by party. They just register to vote, and they vote in the primaries in which they want to vote in. Pennsylvania and North Carolina register voters by party. It's a lot easier than to sit there and identify voters based upon if they're actually a Democrat or actually a Republican in those states. But Georgia, typically the polls usually overly favor Republicans, and in North Carolina and Pennsylvania, they overly favor Democrats.
So Ryan, as far as you can tell, and as far as the numbers are speaking to this, are we essentially guaranteed a very tight election in terms of just the vote totals in the states that matter when all said and done? I mean, is there any way that you could see this turning into some kind of a rout?
I mean, could there? Yeah, Nate Silver has this as a route that they have Trump winning every single swing state. Most other predictors say it will split. The Sun Belt will go for Trump. The Rust Belt will go for Kamala. I do not believe that, though. I think that there is a massive polling error, as I've written about this over and over again, where they are over polling old liberal voters who have a heavy response bias. They're answering polls at too high of a number. In the Survey USA and Quinnipiac poll, I think Survey USA had Trump up by 5 among North Carolina seniors, and Quinnipiac had, I think, Kamala up 8 or 9 among North Carolina seniors. That's a demographic that is heavily Republican. Trump won it by 20 points last time, and I think by about 19 points the time before. It's a heavy, heavy, heavy Republican demographic. There's no way on this planet that it's going to even resemble close to that polls. And why I say seniors over like African Americans or Hispanics, which are a very small sample size in the subset. Seniors are about 30% to 25%. So it's a very large sample size. It has a very small margin of error. So when you're talking about a 25, 30 point, 20 point difference between elections and polls, with subsets of crosstabs, you're looking at a real response bias. And this was true of the response bias in 2020 and in 2016. The illusion of the silent Trump voter often comes from the fact that seniors, old liberal seniors, are oversampled in these polls. They want pollsters to know their opinion. Old liberals love to tell you their opinions. At this point, they're calling pollsters and like, hey, do you want to hear my opinion on this election? That is what we're seeing over and over and over again. I think that's where you're going to sit there and see Trump gain a point nationally is in the senior vote. And that's where states like Pennsylvania and North Carolina could very well easily decided. And none of these polls have the debate, in factored in. Kamala very well likely may see a bump because of Trump's very poor performance in the debate last night. But that will, who knows how long that will last for. They typically do not last all the way to election day. So a lot of people who have lost their first debates went on to win the election. Barack Obama, Donald Trump, George W. Bush lost his first debate pretty badly, and they all won their election. So it doesn't mean it's definite for that it will definitely decide the election.
The answer may be yes, but are Buck and I crazy for looking in the Midwest and saying, just on our belief, I think he and I are aligned on this, old white people in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan in particular are not going to support Kamala as much as they supported Biden. The Scranton Joe appeal, while we may think it was BS based on the way he governed, did persuade some old white moderate voters in those Big Ten states. That's how he won in 2020. There's no, I think there's no way that Kamala gets that same level of support. So this part of this is there a black or Hispanic vote that she's gaining, or could that be dispositive for you in the Midwest?
So there's two groups that will change it for Kamala. One is Gen Z, because there are millions of new voters that were not registered to vote 4 years ago that will be tilting heavily towards Kamala. That was a huge factor in the 2022 election, and abortion is a major issue for them. The second is that there have been 3.3 million new naturalized citizens, legal immigrants, who vote 2.5 or 3 to 1 Democrat since the 2020 election. President Biden ramped up the speed in which people became citizens for a reason. They vote heavily Democrat. During the last few years of Obama's presidency, where he was pushing for refugee resettlement, like same way that Biden, where he's pushing for refugee resettlement, is oftentimes in swing states. So that's why you see huge clusters of migrant voters going to swing state places where you're like, this isn't weird. It's not like there's a huge Haitian population in Springfield, Ohio. No, they're being purposely put into swing states. And 3.3 million new people who could vote, who will overwhelmingly be voting Democrat, as well as the millions of new Gen Z voters, will definitely play a huge factor in it. The thing that they need to sit there and to change that is they need to increase voter turnout among non-college educated whites. Non-college educated whites have and I've said this on your show before, have the worst voter participation among any demographic except for recent immigrants. They do not vote in high numbers. If they voted as often as whites with a college degree did, Oregon would be a red state. It wouldn't even be a close election. Virginia would be a red state. It's just a matter of turnout. Trump is going to improve performance among Hispanics and among Asians and among blacks. But this election is boiled down to the white vote. Do whites without a college degree turn up? Do they show up for Trump? And do they feel like Kamala does not have their best interests?
What do you think is the most important focus the Trump campaign can have between now and Election Day so that we don't have a super sad day coming up in November where we have to have Ryan on, have a big cry session?
I think that Kamala Harris at the age of 60 had a major life event where she changed all of her beliefs overnight. Trump could have cornered her on all those things. And I'm not talking about just fracking, which was the issue they brought up over and over again. She was radical on things like reparations, which is an enormously unpopular idea. Kamala Harris supported a multi-trillion-dollar reparation plan for the descendants of slaves. This is something that's overwhelmingly not only opposed by white voters, but it's opposed by Asians and Hispanic voters who feel like they were never part of the Civil War or anything that followed it. I would bring up that. I would bring up the fact that she was very radical left on a number of issues, from taxes to the Green New Deal, to gun confiscation. She had a major life change in 1,000 days where she changed all of her fundamental beliefs. She went from being a Bernie Sanders Democrat to being, a pro-choice George W. Bush Republican in 1,000 days when she is close to being a senior citizen. Life transformations don't usually happen at that age that quickly. But for some reason, she did. And I think cornering her on who she actually is, who is the real Kamala Harris, is the essential thing. Because the beliefs that she had in 2019 were so unpopular, not even Democrats would vote for her. And that's what you need to, that's why she's running basically as a pro-choice Republican nowadays. I mean, she's about military, about cutting spending, about increasing child tax credit. It's all
about building a wall. She wants to build a wall, right?
She wants to build a wall. I mean, this is the new Kamala Harris, a 1,000-day life transformation. It's never been seen before, and I think exposing that is what you need to sit there and say.
You mentioned young voters. Taylor Swift endorses right after the debate. It's clearly staged, but what is the impact of someone like Taylor Swift? Do you buy into celebrity endorsements moving anything?
I mean, back when celebrity was a real thing, like when Oprah endorsed Obama, it was a real thing. But media was much more organized around very few people, what real celebrities were. Taylor Swift is a real celebrity. I don't know what appeal Taylor has with especially young people, the way that maybe people older think it is. Taylor Swift's almost middle-aged. I mean, she's not 21 anymore. She's not Charlie XCX or people that younger people are always listening to. She's not.
Look at you dropping TikTok knowledge.
No, but she's been around for 2 decades. She's not a young person. She's young, relatively young, but she's not young. She's not a 21-year-old who excites people. And media is not where everyone watched the same 9, 10 things, and that was how we consume media. I don't know how much appeal it has. I looked at people that I knew on Instagram who maybe I didn't know their opinions and who liked it. Everyone I know who I saw who liked it, I knew was a liberal who was voting for her. So I don't know if that really, will change anyone's vote. Maybe it will motivate some people to go out and get out and vote. She's clearly not campaigning for her as of anything I've ever seen yet. And it didn't help celebrities in 2016 when they were all sitting there campaigning heavily for Hillary Clinton. It's not like celebrities supported George W. Bush. We've never really seen celebrities in the modern age support Republicans. So I don't know how much effect it has. Certainly not the Oprah celebrity effect.
Remember the celebrity montage they did for Hillary with the fight song, and they had
so great. So great, yeah.
The level of cringe. So
I watch that
incredible.
like
So-
once a month. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's still very good. Brian Girdusky, everybody, if you want to know what's going on, follow him. Go to the National Populist newsletter on Substack. Ryan, always great to have you, buddy.
Thank you.
Protecting your family is your highest priority, right? You need the right products to do it, though, and they come from Sabre. Sabre is spelled Sabre. It's a family-owned business that's dedicated to personal safety. Start with their collection of pepper spray launchers, which are their best sellers. Sabre makes this #1 made in the USA pepper spray brand, trusted by law enforcement and families across America. The Sabre projectile launcher is a less lethal, fast-loading, no-recoil solution delivering powerful stopping power up to 175 feet. And by the way, it creates a 6-foot pepper cloud, causing intense sensory irritation, which can overwhelm any attacker that you need to. Sabre also has an array of home security products, a whole suite of them. Go check it out. And plus, Sabre products are affordable. You can learn more about them online at sabreradio.com. Now it's SABRE, sabreradio.com. Protect yourself and your family with Sabre's full range of defense sprays, home security tools, and exclusive launcher bundles. Go to sabreradio.com, SABRE radio.com, or call 844-824-SAFE. That's 844-824-SAFE.